right, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Catherine Holt, the Community Manager at Fullcast, and today I'm joined by Darmesh Singh, who's the co-founder and CEO of Fullcast. So Alex Newman was going to do the demo, but we decided that Darmesh would be great to talk about our product and lead our discussion today, so he'll be hosting our demo. And today we'll be talking about new methods to approaching sales planning and how software can make your sales plan more agile and executable in your CRM. So to look at our agenda, we'll start with an overview of who Fullcast is and our point of view on sales operations. Then Darmesh will talk about why traditional sales planning is so challenging and the pitfalls we've all run into. And then this will lead us into our product demo, and we'll demonstrate how Fullcast planning software can create agile, collaborative sales plans. So we'll of course save time for questions at the end, but we do want this to be interactive. So feel free to ask questions at any time, and I'll be monitoring the Q&A box and the chat. And I'll just interject your questions throughout the demo. So you can use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen or the chat feature. You can either send it to all participants or just to the panelists, and I'll be monitoring those things and kind of interjecting your questions as we go along, and then we'll cover any remaining questions at the end. And then the last bit of housekeeping is that I'll be sending a recording of the webinar tomorrow morning. So look for that in your inbox, whether you need to hop off early or if you just want to rewatch it or share it with anyone on your team, you'll have that availability. So let's get started. Hi Darmesh, thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Before we get started, I had one question for the audience, if people can just poll and respond, is how many of you are actually involved in planning today? And you know, how large are your sales teams that you're planning for? That'll be helpful as we go through the demo. So make sure that we can hit on all the topics. And like Catherine said, love to make it interactive. So if you have questions, feel free to stop us. Go ahead. A little bit about Fullcast and what we do and why we do. We are a platform that is focused on reducing the gap it takes between creating your go-to-market plan and making it executable. Our belief is that companies, the ability to shorten that gap is the competitive advantage in a dynamically changing market, where companies that survive and stay and actually thrive are those that can shorten the cycle between planning and execution. Right? We all have a strategic plan. We are planning today. The difference between companies is how fast can we take a given plan and execute against that, right? So that's some of the companies that we work with. Going back to my earlier point around the gap and the thriving part, these are companies where which are familiar to us in our day-to-day life, and these are companies that we view as execution machines. I have had the fortune of working with some of these companies as an employee and managing the teams that were responsible for the execution side of the house. And what we realized was we had a lot of engineering resources thrown at us. When we come out in the mid-market, you know, we don't have a lot of those resources, so we are running our exercises mostly in Excel. And our belief is specifically for sales, which is one of the components of the overall go-to-market, is sales execution. The link between planning and execution is what adapts you for growth, because once your company has found product market fit, the next piece is to find product go-to-market fit, right? And so you're always playing against the go-to-market, which is an evolving feature, right? Today's mid-market company could be tomorrow's enterprise company, and you know we keep going through different tiers of customers and how we engage with the customers, inbound, outbound, marketing, account-based marketing, right? All those things. And so we are planning in those contexts of a dynamic world, and we're executing against that dynamic nature, right? And so keeping those two things aligned is what adapts companies for growth. But for a large number of companies and all of us, planning and execution are two different ends, right? There was a time actually when salespeople ran all the business out of Excel spreadsheets before the advent of CRM, right? So we created CRM to streamline the sales function itself, make sales reps more productive, make it repeatable, and if a rep leaves, the company still has access to the historical information. Planning, however, has stayed in Excel, right? And because it's in Excel, it doesn't really work very well with CRM. And what we end up doing is living in this what we call as operational hell, right? We are managing multiple versions of Excel where we have elements of our data, right? How did we segment our territories? Who owns which accounts? Who moved from the company A to company B or within roles? Right, and all that stuff is tracked in Excel by operations folks, and then we kind of do manual data loads and CRM configuration. And so what we feel is just like CRM is a system for salespeople, the ops teams and the sales leader need a system for planning where they can actually work as a complement to the CRM to keep plan and execution aligned, right? So what does it mean to be growth oriented? That is the number one question, because our belief is that, like I said earlier, companies are planning and they are doing execution today. So there is a system that works based on Excel and all those things. But if you're a growth oriented company, that means you are always looking at a go-to-market model, evolving it. There's a change that you're planning for in three buckets. One is the nature of your customer base is changing. The nature of your competitors are changing. So if you're in an attractive marketplace, you will find new competitors entering that place. And there is an overall what I would say is internal changes, right? People moving within the company across different roles, or some new people coming into the company and going. All those things require us to react and execute, and growth-oriented companies are those that feel that they can react, right? Aaron Levy put it very nicely that as Box moved from a free offering to an SMB offering to now an enterprise player, their sales cycles shifted, and it was not a simple model of just saying I'm going to call on the new next Microsoft. I have to now resource the team differently. I have to plan for a different rigor of sales cycles, right? And all those things have a dependency on the execution cycle, right? So as we think about sales planning and executing against the plan, there is a 10-step process on IVU, and this is not a fully comprehensive process in the sense that we have not talked about compensation in this stage. But where we started from is that we all have a notion of who is our ideal customer profile. We do have a sense of the size of the market, right? So we buy data from the third-party data sources, look at analyst studies, we size the market. So we have our customer profile, we will size the market. Based on the size of the market, we will look at what part of that market can we address, and based on that number, we will come out with a financial target for ourselves. And generally, this is a financial target that either finance team or the sales leadership team is setting up. And once we get the target, we look at our internal capacity and say, do we have the capacity to meet these financial targets? Or do we need to go hire people? What kind of roles do we need to have assigned? And again, this goes to the go-to-market. I might have just an inbound team. If I'm selling something for $5 or $10 and just a lot of self-service signups over there, I'm selling 5-figure deals. I probably need to have an enterprise sales motion, so I'll have multiple people. And when you think about go-to-market, it's not just sales, especially in the SaaS world. It is all the work that needs to happen before the sale, close the sale, and then support the sale, right? So you need to have ongoing customer success people aligned to your go-to-market, right? So we define our roles. What kind of roles do we have in the company today? What kind of roles we will be retiring, right? As we evolve our go-to-market, some roles may become redundant. Then we take our customer base and we will segment and create territories. And for each of those territories, we will then put people that we've defined in roles into those territories. and go ahead and create a plan, set up the targets, and manage the ongoing, what we call as the moves, add changes of people within that, right? At some point during the planning process, generally in the beginning of the calendar year or the fiscal year, we will commit our changes, right? And what that means is we are time stamping and date stamping accounts against the right owner, accounts against the right segment in my CRM, and then managing and holding people accountable to the plan. And after that, it's all about managing to the plan, right? People, once the plan is in action, you will find that people are still leaving the company, job roles are changing, and so the managers and the ops teams are constantly managing the move, add changes. And what we really need to do there is have fidelity and lens into what is the impact of each move or an ad, right? When we hire a new person, there's ramp involved, and how soon they can get productive. And so someone's departure or change has the potential to impact my ability to meet targets, right? And so we're constantly reviewing the performance, and based on the performance, we'll go back and adjust our customer profile, and the cycle goes on, right? So that is, to us, is a cycle of planning and tying it back to execution, minus the compensation part, right? Because in this, there is a step over here when you're assigning people, you'll also have comp models and comp calculations. We'll not get into that today, but we'll stick with the planning cycle itself. So our goal today, from a demo perspective, is to start from step number 5, right? The assumption for the demo is, as customers, we understand our ICP. We know the size of the market that we are targeting. Our finance team or the leadership team has given us a financial target. And the missing part over here is, how do we define our capacity needs? It's an area that we're working on, so it's on the roadmap. We will not touch on that today, but we get started from the roles piece and onwards. So I will just switch out of the PowerPoint and go into a demo itself. So this is the Fullcast platform, and we have 3 modules. We'll touch on 2 of them. We will not touch on the third module, which is motion. The design piece is where we build our go-to-market design, right? All the things that we talked about from step number 5, we will have them in the go-to-market design. Rhythm is managing the business rhythm, right? This is where your sales leaders, if you are coming in and saying, how are we tracking against plan? And this is, for lack of a better word, a dashboard view onto key critical KPIs that are role-based. Motion, which we will not touch on in detail, is essentially the run state list of policies that get that will be enforced on Salesforce in the context of go-to-market. We'll probably, depending on time, I might just show you quickly a sneak peek into that, but we'll specifically spend our time mostly on design and rhythm, right? So on the design side, where we are right now, there are 5 things that we can do, right? 2 of them are foundational. We start as a sales organization. We have 2 stakeholders. We have our internal stakeholders, that's all the people on the sales team, or I would say on the go-to-market team. It's broader than just salespeople, where we are defining their roles, right? And this is a fundamental basic building block that we're doing, right? We will define the roles, and then what we're also doing is, if we have multiple data sources, right, for data DNB and Discover, ZoomInfo, Clearbit, we're pulling data from multiple places. Each of those places defines their data and puts an industry taxonomy that's custom to them. They're not generally that we can relate to. And if we have a go-to-market motion that is very custom, I might call a company that I'm targeting as a chemical company, and it could be Nike is one of them. but you might be calling Nike as a shoe company. If you go to SIC codes, actually Nike is labeled as a chemical company. Because depends on what I'm selling, I might be calling the company differently, and so we can create custom industry taxonomy and roles. So these are foundational, right? And then I have the other stakeholder, which is the customers. And customers, I'm targeting and carving them basically from a support perspective from three different lenses. How do I create territories? How do I create the right team model, right? To taking my roles that I have, the internal capacity, putting them in teams and setting targets in them in support of the customer. And if I have multiple product SKUs, each product could have its own go-to-market, right? I might be selling some product only in Americas and some it's only in EU. I might have different products. I might have different owners for different products, and each of them has a different target, right? So we can assign teams and product ownership if you have multiple products. So those are the three different ways of go-to-market per se. We will start in roles. And since there's a foundational building block, I want to sort of talk a little bit about roles and why we have them. Roles is where the ops team is centrally defining all the different roles that the company has, which are the roles that are currently active, because like I said, as your go-to-market will evolve, some roles you will retire, some roles you'll keep, or you'll add new roles. And for each of the role as a team, what you want to know is, what is my current net capacity? Because that capacity determines my ability to meet my financial targets. And I want to have a lens of how many of them are to be hired, how many of them are to be transferred more, how many of them are to be replaced more. So this is an aggregated view of all the resources, in this case, say an escalation engineer resource that I have pulled from across my organization to have as an ops team, a central view of all the people that are due for hiring, to be transferred, to be replaced, and my overall net capacity, right? So this is generally managed today in Excel sheets where people are tracking, based on reports coming in from the field or managers. This person might be leaving, and I have an open headcount, and that's scattered across the organization in Excel spreadsheet. And what we can't do with it, because it's in spreadsheet, is update the plan if any of the changes happen. Or suddenly someone leaves, I need to know what's the overall impact to my number, right? So my net ramped capacity at any point of time will tell me what I have. The other big thing is most people miss their targets because they've underestimated ramp, right? And we have this notion of productivity profile, and for each role, you in ops can define a default productivity profile, right? So the first year, what you'll have is the first time you use Fullcast, you will have the option of defaulting productivity profile as you want. You can define the profile of a user by a given month. At 4 months, I have a profile in the beginning in this role, for example, for 0%, 25%, 50%, 100%, right? And this is the profile if you are a new hire. If you're a transfer into the role, I could have a totally different profile, right? What will happen over here is, over a period of time, you will get intelligence from the system to say, no, your real profile is X, and so you can fine tune by role. But more importantly, you have centralized the ramp profiles in a central system so that every time a rep gets added to your organization, you're not depending on the manager's judgment of how soon or not a rep will ramp up. You have a central model, so you will know a new rep came in, this is the profile, what's the impact to my target? And you're not having those hallway discussions with the managers to say, when is this guy going to be fully ramped? And so you are centralizing this so that you can have a better handle on targets versus variance. Right? Those things work really well. So now I have my roles defined. I have the option of either retiring a role, keeping a role, right? If I retire a role, I don't retire the targets, but essentially a central place to see my entire capacity and how I have designed it. Right? So going back now into each of these modules, all the modules work the same way. But let's say we start with customer segmentations, right? Or actually, before that, let's just go take another trip, right? Let's start with the rhythm, because that's, as a business leader, that's where I come in every day in the morning and say, how am I doing against my plan? And these are different views that you could have, and this is totally customizable, right? A sales leadership view could have their own view. Strategy could have their own view. They're essentially getting the same data view, but they're all coming in over here to ask questions. There's a question.
Yeah, so we have a question that says, can you compare the ramp targets to CRM sales data within Fullcast?
The answer is yes. In the beginning, we are assuming that the first time people install Fullcast, you will have an assumption of what your current ramp is, and we will take that and model it into the ramp profile. And as the system because we are in sync with Salesforce, as the system will be pulling in data from Salesforce, we'll be validating those assumptions and giving you, the ops people, the lens of the first time when we created the ramp model, is that accurate, right? Because planning is all a function of assumption. And today I'm assuming you are putting an assumption of my ramp is perhaps one sales cycle plus 90 days, right? And so we need to understand from you, how do you calculate ramp, and we can set that up.
Thanks.
Right. So I have these different folders here. So I can start with, let's say I want to see from a strategy perspective, I'm looking for planning specific analysis. I want to look at segments data, right? So anything that I want to measure, these will be the metrics that matter. I can sort of look at it. This will be the North Star as I start planning, right? So I'm seeing how my teams are doing, across each of these segments. I can say there are a lot of prospects here in the mid-market. So I can drill into mid-market here itself, and I can say, how do the prospects look like? The charts will refresh the same metrics across my segments as I drill in and drill out. And then I realize in the Pacific Northwest here, there seem to be a lot of prospect. I can drill into Pacific Northwest, and I will see how my reps are currently broken down. And I will see that there are a whole bunch of accounts out here that seem to be in the unassigned bucket. So that's an area that I might want to focus in, right? But more importantly, as I am planning, before I make my changes, I need to understand what is the impact of my change. So things like a disruption report and coverage report, right? Those are part of the template that we will provide for you. So like I said, this is not a BI tool, but we do realize that for planning purposes, you need to have data, right? And so the idea is, instead of having to go from a Tableau into an Excel and the Salesforce and multiple versions of Excel, we want to bring it all in one place for you to see. So you will see your data, and based on the data, then you can make some decisions on how you want to segment and carve your territories and give targets, right? So then I switch into my territory design modules, and what I see is the system has a real-time sync with Salesforce, right? And when I say real-time, I mean sales data is not changing, on an ongoing basis every 5 minutes. So you decide the sync schedule, right? You can say I want it every 10 minutes, 24 hours, 48 hours, totally up to you. The problem that we're trying to solve over here is typical planning cycles. The way they're done is we extract data from Salesforce into an Excel sheet, right? And we have this master Excel sheet that the planning team uses. We work off that, we create a planning module, and we distribute the sheet to all the other people who are responsible for planning, and they're involved in the planning cycle. And once they give their data, they make their inputs, they send the sheets back to me. I consolidate all the data, I share it back with the team, and that's when the first time everybody gets to see everybody's data. I have a lot of round trips of sheets over there. We had at Salesforce 1,500 sheets going out to 400 managers every month, and a team of 40 in Costa Rica just managing those sheets. I can tell you for a fact, the morale on the team was not really high. Average tenure of a guy on my team was 18 months. After some time, they will just leave. So here what we've done is, because of the real-time sync, we've cut away the problem of multiple extracts that I need to do, because I'm getting real-time data, right? When I was working on the sheets, I would spend 3 months working in Excel sheets, doing my plan, and when I'm ready to load, that's when I would find 30% turnover in people or new accounts created, and I have to go back and start dealing with people, right? And people are saying, no, this account belongs to me because your data around account segmentation, because you were perhaps segmenting by, say, employee size or billing state, is not accurate in this account. And so this account does not have that data. It actually belongs to me, not to this other guy. And there's a whole lot of escalation process that we have to manage, right? So what we are doing is essentially we give you two views today, and there is a desire to put multiple what-if scenarios as well on the roadmap. So you'll have more than two very soon. But for now, there are two views. What you're saying is a couple of things. At the top front center out here, you've got your North Star metrics. These are the metrics that you as an organization have decided are critical to me and against which my entire planning exercise is focused, right? These are metrics that my board says as a company, we need to be aligned to in a number of prospects, number of customers, open renewals. That's what they're measuring. And it's totally customizable, right? You can pick and choose the metrics that matter, and you can say, no, I want to look at average committed monthly recurring revenue, and that'll be the new metric that you'll put over here, right? And so you'll see how that is. And as I troll around, I will see that metric refresh across each of these segments. But I'm in my proposed view, which means this is a view. It's a planning data that I'm working off. It's not the current data. I would like to see how am I currently performing, right? So when I hit current, I'm actually getting live data from Salesforce, and I'm seeing today how my system is set up, right? How these metrics affect to today's reality. Then I say, okay, no, I will look at a proposed view. This is where I'm planning. And at that point, I'm the planner at the all company level. I want to go ahead and say, pick a hierarchy or pick a segment that I want to go in. I can actually go into that data. The data should refresh for that segment, right? Setting up hierarchy is pretty straightforward, right? We can go ahead and create a hierarchy based on a field that matters to you. And so essentially what you're doing is you're pulling in the fields from Salesforce and pick any of those fields to create a hierarchy. You could also create custom bucket values. So like employee size is a good one. If I were to just click an employee size of the field right now, I have a whole list of account hierarchies, right? That's meaningless. I just need to have high-level buckets of 0 to 500. I could create the bucket values over here against a field, or I could also do things like based on the visual maps itself. When we are creating these hierarchies, we are also defining the rules on how accounts that have a parent-child relationship have to be treated, right? So we have three options. You can either decide, I don't want to reassign the accounts to the same segments, which means I'm going to break the parent-child relationship. Like Pfizer, for example, could be a global account managed out of New York, but Pfizer in La Jolla could move to California, and Pfizer in New York stays in Pfizer, and Pfizer in Ann Arbor State goes to Michigan, right? So I can break those accounts over here. If I decided, no, I want to treat Pfizer as a global account, it will go to the similar segment and everybody moves. All accounts and child accounts of Pfizer would move to this guy in the Midwest, right? If I have a custom criteria, I can define my custom criteria as well. Like I said, if I want to go do mapping view, I can do the map-based view as well. And essentially what it'll do is it'll bring you into a map-based view, and I can say I want to look at the map of the United States, and I want to go down and drill in at a state level, and essentially I'll bring in over here. It'll zoom down to state, zip code level, and I can pick any metric that matters for me. I want to look at the number of prospects, and the heat map will show me the number of prospects in a given territory. And I can create custom territories based on a visual map. So the idea over here is to really quickly create a plan and have that plan available for me. Now let's say I have these buckets that are unassigned, right? So one of the things that we are doing is, let's say you picked up a hierarchy and you're creating this hierarchy based on employee size. The business rules will run. They will go ahead and pull all the accounts and automatically classify them into those segments and populate it. But there are some accounts that got created because we all know data in CRM is not accurate all the time. And so those accounts that did not have that field filled in for whatever reason would come into the unassigned bucket, right? That's how we start getting ahead of ourselves in terms of keeping data clean. And I can make a decision and say, this account has to move, right? I'm going to move this account because I don't want any unassigned bucket. I'm going to move it from here to, say, Midwest. But at the time of move, because the guy who was in that account can say, this account needs to be moved in the Midwest because a field was missing. So I want to update whether it's a vertical, a geo. I can pick a list of from any of these fields. I can say the billing state was missing. This should be the value. It needs to be in Michigan, and I'll confirm. And so essentially now I'll tag this account with the Michigan label, and I'll move it over so that the next time when we update the account in Salesforce, we'll have that data. The other piece I could do is I could use the same feature for writing a note to my sales ops team saying, do not move this account because I might have an active open opportunity that I'm working on. So I want all accounts moved but this one, right? So that kind of functionality is also there. A great deal of time is spent on hallway conversations when people are saying, I need some more information about a particular account or a detail and all those things. So you can actually also engage in collaboration with people who are assigned to the territory right here. And this is super important because, like I said earlier, planning is based on assumptions. And a lot of those assumptions are generally today caught in email or hallway conversations. And what you want those assumptions as part of the plan. So that a year from now, when you're updating the plan or a mid-year check-in that you're doing it, you can say, okay, well, we assumed, this was the discussion we had, we assumed these things, and that's why the number was blah, or this person was assigned, right? All that discussion for any segment can be had in the context of the plan. It is slightly different from doing that and then say a Slack or an email exchanges because people change role, right? Today's AE on a given territory could move to another territory or move out of an AE role to, say, customer success role. And so if you go through a Slack channel, right, he'll have to go hunting down what he said all the time, or he might leave the company. But having it available as part of the plan is available for audit purposes and compliance purposes of saying who said what during a given plan when we are planning. Right? So once the plan is done, the next piece that you're doing is you're assigning people into those territories, right? And there are certain people that you'll say were inherited, right? So these are people that were, so if I'm a RVP for the enterprise segment, I am assigned to the enterprise segment here, but any downstream account from in the enterprise, I would be inherited, right? So I have full visibility into what's happening in that account. And this is really important because now, let's say, when you're in the classic old scenario, right, when you're planning in Excel, I had an Excel sheet and I sent it to the guy who owns enterprise segment. I said, this is your sheet. He works in his sheet and he sends it back to me. So this is the assignment where I can send it to this person. I'm assigning him the territory. And once I assign him the territory, he will only see the enterprise segment. And he will be able to sort of comment and manage all the big players in the enterprise segment because that he owns that assignment, right? And each of those assignments can be managed, and it's really interesting in terms of seeing what all we can do. We'll come back to this. People move the companies. I can change role. I can terminate employee, and we'll come back to this functionality in about 10 minutes, right? So once I assign people into role, I'm then getting into my target setting process, right? This is where you're doing quota setting or any kind of target. Anything that you want to measure can be set as a target and can be distributed top down, bottom up to get right any of those exercises out here. So in this case, you got 3 targets, and what I'm seeing at right now is my actuals versus variance. I had put target, and in real time, against even though I'm in a proposed view, I'm seeing how my current active plan is performing. Right, I'm seeing my actual versus variance for what are the metrics that matter. In this case out here, it's seen my revenue target is 9.7 versus the original target of 21.2. My FY18 revenue target was 3 million. I'm 3.6. I'm way ahead of the target here. But I can see how it's been distributed, I can either go back and edit the target. And what I mean by that is when I edit, I'm actually seeing what caused that variance, right? So I had given a bottom-up number, a top-down target of 3 million, and I had the breakdown of this target for every month. In the month of April, though, there was a variance. The team in the enterprise market said, for whatever reason, that number is going to be a little lower. In the month of October, they kind of, however, they said, the number is going to be higher than what I had planned for, right? And then there's an overall delta for that segment. So I can actually go and see how it broke down for that given month, and I can edit the target to see what triggered it off, right? So I can actually see that I'd given a target, it was for a revenue. I can apply, I'd given it for account executive role, so you can pick any role. It could be a target for an SDR, an AE, a customer success guy, right? Everybody has a target. And you can create either a formula or you can just get an absolute target. But more importantly, why the adjustment happened was the person who inherited the target added or updated the revenue schedule, right? So they either put a revenue schedule that said, my seasonality could be different. I'm doing a manual schedule itself, or either ways, he could have also either done a manual adjustment, right? So he might have said, I know I have a sandbagger on my team, and he's gonna, always come under from a target perspective. So I'm going to manual adjust and give him a quota uplift or whatever it is, right? So I can do all those things. Because I'm at the top of the hierarchy here, I could also go ahead and distribute the target down based on a field to the team below me, right? And I can see these are all the different nodes below me and how they're distributed, right? Or I can also comment on the target, right? So the entire collaboration of that happens in the multiple Excel sheets and across email and hallway kind of being rolled into one. And the beauty of this is the benefit is that all the people who are involved in the planning piece now have no surprises. It's a lot more efficient exercise across target setting process where people are actually seeing how the numbers actually impact in real time against real data, right? Of course, there is this notion of, can we balance territories? Yes, salespeople want to know how we balanced. You can create balancer views. You can actually, much like a Tableau experience, you can look at any dimensions, any measures to figure out how you balance the territories. So that's there. The other piece is, so now I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint to make sure we are on track here. We define the roles. We carved some segments and territories. We assigned people into roles. We have not committed our decisions, and we have not done the moves that changes, right? So let's say we have created these segments. We get sign off from everybody on the plan because all the people can see the plan. We know who's covering what in the assignments. We have agreement on the targets themselves. And as soon as all those things are locked, I can commit my changes, right? I can hit commit over here, and as soon as I hit commit, all the changes will be moved into Salesforce. So no more manual data loads working with IT to get data into Salesforce, or dependent on errors in Excel, where I've actually seen where we have the same account assigned to two different people on two different versions of Excel copy. Right? We do away with all those problems by committing all these changes straight into Salesforce. And what that commitment means is all the accounts in Salesforce will be mapped to the segment they belong to. All the account team module in Salesforce will be stamped with the people who were assigned to that account. We'll start tracking the activities to reflect against the targets that we set for them. Okay. Now, the plan is in motion, planning is done. Generally, that's how plans work. We plan towards the last quarter of fiscal year for the next quarter or next year. And then mid-year, we check in the plans to see how we perform to plan. But right through the year, people are moving in and out of roles, right? And that movement is something we track in Excel spreadsheets today, right? We will track who was covering which account when. And by the way, for comp purposes, I need to have a historical record of all those things. So now quickly in the assignments tab, you can actually have a view of who are the people who are covered in the past, who are the active people in this on this territory. If I had to be hired, to be transferred, to be replaced, who was doing a temporary coverage, I get the full snapshot view of the current coverage model. And I can actually manage these people, right? So let's say this person has to be, is going to change role, he's an RVP. So if I'm going to change role, I can timestamp when this person role change is going to happen. It's going to happen on the 27th. The role of the user is going to change to an account executive, and start date and end date for that role. And I can go ahead and then say, okay, if this guy is moving and changing role, I want to know which territory he was currently assigned to. When is this effective date assignment to happen? So I can, for comp purposes, I can effective date his move. I can mark his current role as to be replaced, and I can pick a person who might replace him and hit next. And what will happen is I will now be able to trigger changes in Salesforce of moving those accounts that belong to the enterprise territory to the new person Ali, whereas also moving Randall from a regional VP role into an AE role on a new segment that I might pick for him. Right. So that is a lot of work that used to be done in the enterprise space. Like I remember our days, we would track this in Salesforce, and now suddenly I have Ali, whose start date is 26th June, end date is 30th December, but he's still inactive because we've not hit the date yet, right? And so when Ali comes on board, this will become active. Now, vice versa, typically what will happen is someone leaves the company, we delete that user out of Salesforce, right? And we may or may not move the accounts, sometimes, how good the process is, but we definitely are not able to generally update the targets in real time to say, this person has left the company, I'm going to have a new guy, and like we discussed in the roles earlier, the profile, the RAM productivity has not been factored in, so I don't have the full line of sight into the impact of that change. Having all of this in one system now gives everybody a view and to say, oh, Ali is going to be the new guy coming in. Ali will have a RAM profile, which means in that enterprise territory, this is the potential variance I could have to my target because of this move. Right? I could do the same thing as a business flow for people that I want to terminate. Right? I'm terminating a person, and I can pick a date that this person is going to be terminated on, and I can say these are the territories that he currently covers in the different roles that he is. I can pick the role who are the different people that are going to cover his role while he's terminating. Is there termination and the coverage, sorry, for that matter, a temporary replacement or a permanent replacement? Because that will impact my to be hired and to be replaced numbers. I can say this one is a temporary replacement. I'll confirm. And what it'll do is it should actually move adjust all the targets that are impacted by that move. Right? This is the daily business of sales. Now, it's very easy for sales VPs who might have 5 or 10 people to manage this in an Excel spreadsheet because that's only 5 people that they manage. But the cascading effect of this at scale across an organization all add up to create that variance between plan versus actual, and ops team need that visibility. The sales leaders need that visibility to the impact of those changes in real time, right? So we can plan ahead and be mindful. Like I said, we have a go-to-market done. We've committed a plan. We're managing people in real time, right? I have my rhythm dashboard where I can actually see different things, the insights that matter to me. I told you I'll probably just touch base on motion. Once the plan is in motion, our view is sales operations is in the business of creating the plan and defining the policies around the plan on how it needs to get executed. So you could create policies, foundational policies that are what I would say is focusing on the execution side, the run side of your go-to-market plan, right? So once I have my go-to-market plan defined, I have my entire segment right here, but I can actually pick and choose policies based on segments, right? So today, the way we do it is we write, say, a routing logic, right? And we write routing logic in custom code or also use a third-party tool out there to create custom logic for how I'm going to route it, whether it's a lead, an account, an opportunity, any of those things. But as my go-to-market evolves, I'm going and rewriting this route, that rule itself. So no, there's limited value in routing the rule. What's actually changing is a go-to-market. And our view here is that stuff should be dynamically managed by ops team based on the changing nature of the go-to-market. So I can say my default lead routing is active, and this is how the policy works at an all companies level, right? It's for all the leads that are coming in, right? And it's in plain English language where I'm saying this is a lead. How do I handle if there's a policy on duplicate handling? If there's a policy on account or auto conversion, how do I auto convert? Am I enabling role based? I'm doing round robin. All those are different policies that we're doing. But I can say for my enterprise segment, I will have a default separate new policies, which means I don't need to go ahead and write a new rule. As we showed you earlier, when you're creating segments, as an account has automatically moves to the enterprise segment, that account that got stamped as enterprise segment will pick up the policy for routing based on enterprise routing rules, right? So I could go ahead over here and then say for enterprise segment, my lead routing is going to be different, right? So the idea here is to give you the fidelity to define a policy based on your go-to-market, right? We do the same thing with a whole bunch of policies out here. How do we handle account families? If you have US trade embargoes, for example, right? Okay, I can say for my enterprise accounts, I have a trade embargoes policy. Mr. Trump has told added another country to the list that we can't do business with. And so we'll go flag all the accounts that originate from that country and make sure that the salespeople are following those rules. Similarly, for holdouts, right? Or taxonomy. So those are policies that we can enforce as business rules. The way they work is we just define the policy here and we'll enforce the policy on Salesforce. So with that, I'm looking at the clock. It's almost 12 minutes to the hour. I'm happy to take any questions here.
So we have one question about if your data is dirty, do you need to have clean data in order for this to work?
True. And we have, it is a moving target question. So we have a couple of different ways of solving this. One is the data problem is like it's a tub of dirty water, right? We have to first come and clean it up. So there we have a professional services offering, which will come and look at some of the core data problems tied to the go-to-market because it has to be specific to the go-to-market that we can come and clean up. Once it's cleaned, we then let the system keep it clean, right? We talked about the unassigned bucket. So when let's say my next year's go-to-market plan is I want to go and carve territories for my enterprise by vertical. I would actually look at the data, see if my data, all my accounts are flagged with the vertical. If not, we do a one-time cleanup, and then the system will automatically make sure that the policy created that anytime anyone creates an account, we need to pick industry segment and the business rules will run, right? And if they sit outside that, they'll go into the unassigned bucket. We'll get the field to flag them, and and so there's no silver bullet. It's a multi-step process, right? Do the data clean, enforce the business policy, track what's unassigned, involve the field where it's missing.
Awesome, great. We'll do one last question. I have a named account model. Can we build a plan for that?
Absolutely. So what you would do is you would just create a node over here in the design module, and you can say, okay, I'm going to create a segment for a named account model. So I could create a segment just for let's just go in under small business. Actually, named account is mostly an enterprise play. Under financial services, I can say for this financial service, I'm going to create a new node out here, and I add a node called named account. And out here, this one would be where I will now assign people custom roles into that territory, right? So I have a named account model, I have an enterprise sales motion, I have multiple people there that I can roll into it.
Great. Well, that's the last of our questions. Thanks everyone for participating and staying so engaged. And thank you, Darmesh, for leading us through that demo.
You're welcome. I love talking about design. So
yeah, it's great. And if you want to show that slide of our contact information, if you're interested in seeing this more detailed, if you want to see if it could apply to your business, feel free to get in touch with Darmesh. And his email is just darmesh@fullcast.io, and I'll be sure to include that in the email that goes out with our recording. And if you'd like to get in touch with me for any reason, my email is there as well. We always love to feature people on our webinars, so if you're interested in talking about your area of expertise, get in touch with me. And thanks again, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.